after show.
Yes,
the part you wanted to get to.
This is where we get real and personal.
Oh man, I thought
so
we were
get ready
to
share. We're gonna have fun in the midst of it, but this is where we just kind of talk about in the show. We were walking through a lot of stuff, but this is where it gets to application, right? Remember I said in the show, I flubbed it. Information without application is just information. Information with application becomes knowledge.
I love it.
And so we're going to share our personal knowledge from a setback, something we each have personally gone through, and get real with you about how it impacted us and what you can learn from it as you move forward.
Well, and the cool thing is I think yours is going to be one that a little bit older, that you're moving through, and mine is one that's recent. I'm still in the storm.
Yeah.
So I think that'll be good to share too, to be able to show like, hey, I'm still in the middle of a storm. This has been a very, very stormy year for me and my family. So you want to start, or you want me to kick it off?
Go ahead.
So here's this. Let me just list out the storm so you feel better about yourself and what you got going on over there. We started the year with my mother falling down the stairs and her foot bent backwards, so we had to have surgery on her foot, but she was in Texas, so we had to go get her and bring her back. She went into a deep depression because of it, because it was 30 days of not being able to move at all. Super deep depression. We shut down a restaurant in March and lost $165,000. So loss of a business. I've wanted a restaurant since I was 8 years old. Loss of a dream, just having to process that as well. Yeah. And actually, the week before we did that, we found out that Clayton, our youngest child, has type 1 diabetes, which is the one I'm going to talk through when we go through. I want to take you through the top pillars of the diabetes. It's the most emotional and hardest as a parent. Now, my little brother Brent had diabetes, so it's helpful that we've seen it and that he's been through it. Now, that's his mentor, which is funny enough, So Brent has been a great mentor for my son Clayton. And funny enough, Clayton, when he got it, was like, wow, I'm like Uncle Brent. There wasn't a negative. So the kid has helped pull me through. But we found out Clayton had type 1 diabetes, which was super tough. Lots of long nights of making sure he wasn't going to go into a coma. Then we shut down the restaurant and lost the $165,000. And then shortly thereafter, Jacob and I had some marital issues that we went through that we've talked about. And we came out on top with that, but that happened as well. And then lastly, our middle kiddo tried to take her life about 8 weeks ago. So it has been a stormacious year for us, and the reason that I have any joy is because of Jesus. Like, because of Jesus, because of my mentors, because of my friends, because of you, because of my family. They have been what we've used to walk through that, as well as all the things that we mentioned in the show. If you've not watched the show, you need to go check that out. Yeah. We mentioned in the show that there was ways to prepare yourself for storms. I am where I am and capable of being, happy and healthy because I have worked for 20 years in those areas. Like, I have been preparing and preparing and preparing. Not that this stuff did not affect me, but I was capable of assessing it, figuring it out, having my moments, letting myself weep and be sad, and then figuring out, what do I do with these ashes? And of course, the Lord is my top one, Him moving me through this. So all that to say, the storm I want to take you through is going to be the one where Clayton got diabetes. My son is 16 years old. He is the brainchild of our family. He is funny and kind, and he's the baby, and yet we treat him like an adult because he acts like an adult. He can razz us as fast as anybody can. And so him getting diabetes was a huge hit to the family, and we were so busy with the restaurant failing that over 5 months, he began to lose weight, and he was getting slower, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. Like, at the restaurant, we'd be like, hey, go wash the dishes, and he'd wash one and then go sit down, and we'd give him an apple juice, not knowing that he was already super high, because we were like, get some sugar in him so he gets up. He would be like, I'm going as fast as I can. So several times people had mentioned, hey, it looks like he's losing weight. And so finally, my mom said it around February. And she said it in such a way that had some disdain to it. Not mean, but just like, something's wrong. We need to see what's going on. So I put him on the scale that night after everybody left. And I'm going to get choked up. And he had lost 35 pounds. 35 pounds in 6 months. Oh. And we hadn't paid attention because I'm short and chunky. Jacob's tall and skinny. So this poor kid has been short and chunky, tall and skinny, short and chunky. Yeah. So, he just grew in that, Christmas tree fashion all these years. And so 35 pounds, and I was just white. Something's 100% wrong. Immediately, I went to the fact that maybe he had a tumor. Maybe there was cancer, maybe something like that. And the reason is that I'd always been taught, somewhere somebody planted this idea in my head that if you had diabetes in your generation, it skipped a generation. So my grandparents had it. My mom and dad did not. My brother had it. Our children should be free. My grandchildren, we should see some activity. That was never in a million years did I think one of my children. That's not the generation.
Right.
I don't know where that even got supplanted, but never thought to check his blood sugar, and had a conversation with our oldest kiddo, and I think God just used her to ask me, have you checked his blood sugar, which wouldn't have never come up. This was totally the Holy Spirit talking through Caitlin to say, check it. And I did, and he was at 520. 120 is high for a person.
Oh my goodness.
Well, he had started vomiting terribly the week before, which was him going into ketoacidosis, which is the dangerous level of diabetes. We just didn't know it. We thought it was a cold, a stomach bug, whatever it was. So to get to that point as a parent, it would have been very, very easy for me to blame myself and to get into this, you should have known, yada, yada, yada. But I paid close attention to my children, and I really looked at the fact that I really believed that he couldn't get it. You know what I mean? I really believed that skip generation medical thing, which wasn't true. So for the help to walk through this, now that you know the story, the mind piece was hard for me because well, actually, the mind piece wasn't that bad because I did this. I was like, you believed a lie. You lived in that lie. Nobody did any harm. It's just I just didn't believe that to be true. So I'm not going to beat myself up that I couldn't tell that Clayton had diabetes. Now that I know, we acted very quickly. Lots of long nights. Laurie doing lots of math with different insulin levels and working through it and being very diligent in this child's life. And now he's doing fantastic. And it's been about 7 or 8 months. The part that hurt the most was my spirit. I was super angry with God. Of all people to have to get this and have to go through this, like this sweet baby, the last baby we have, for him to have it, I was super upset with God. Because the thing is, and I remember when my brother got it, my mom used to talk about all the time, she was like, everybody looks at you like it's manageable, it's a shot, and it's like, yes, it is. And they'd say, thank God it's not cancer. And that is so true, but it's so detrimental to your spirit as a mother because it's not a shot, it's 7 shots. It's poking your finger 15 times a day. It's wondering if he's going to die at night. And guess what? It's for forever. So it's like, I get it. I get the conversation. I watched my mom go through it. I never understood it until now.
Yeah.
So the spirit part was, why God? Like, why couldn't it have been me? Why wasn't Brent, who we've already suffered enough with his diabetes all these years and all of the trauma we've seen from him not taking care of his sugars sometimes, when he was younger. It's like there's so much trauma associated with that. You go high and you could start vomiting and die. You go low, you go into a coma and die. And so there's just this range of numbers that you have to stay in. And so my spirit was probably the hardest. My body, there was physical problems because obviously staying up all night or sleeping on the floor next to his bed, just so that I could be right there just in case anything happened at the beginning. You're physically exhausted. And lastly, my heart. Of course, I was heartbroken for him. Now, the cool part is that Jacob and I have worked on ourselves, my husband and I, so long that he's been watching. Clayton's been watching us work on ourselves for 20 years, and so he's worked on himself even as a child. That's why he's mature as he is. And because of the deep work we've done on ourselves, and that he's done too, even though we didn't know it, right? He's a bystander of it. He's been so accepting of this disease.
Wow.
He's been so good in the disease. 3 times, maybe 4 over the last 9 or 10 months has he said, I don't understand. And it's not like, oh, woe is me. It's like, I don't know why my number's doing what it shouldn't be doing. It's more of the calculation. Or I don't want to take a shot, or I don't want to work out. I want to go to bed. I'm tired, or I want to eat this piece of candy, but I'm not able to. And so that's only happened 3 or 4 times. He's just really helped pull us through. And when I look at the scope of my extraordinary life and this setback with Clayton and his diabetes, I have to, as I mentioned in the show, I have to pinpoint the fact that my spirit had to be healed first. Right? The toothache was in my spirit. I had to touch my spirit and talk it out with my mom, talk it out with Caitlin and my oldest, and Jacob, my husband, pray a lot about it. And then I got back in the Word. Like I started reading my Bible every day, not to change my opinion about the diabetes, but to reconnect with who God was in general. And as my spirit healed, we got his numbers figured out. I'm sleeping again at night. He's sleeping again at night. We found new technology. Praise God for new technology. We looked for resources to help us in the storm. Jacob's working with a counselor. I'm working with a counselor. It's like just different things to continue to the next level of preparation. Even though we're still in the midst of the storm, we're on the edge of getting out of it.
Yeah. My goodness, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
It really was. And to hear, to hear all the things that were going on and having that happen as well, you had to absolutely feel defeated.
Yeah, absolutely.
You really did.
I think what happened is that every time something new hit, I had a moment of accepting defeat or deflecting defeat. And most of them, outside of the diabetes, which took me a couple weeks, most of them I got to deflect. And again, it's all the preparation that I had been ready for. It's like you're ready to go to battle at all times. It's like you've worked on your mind and your heart and your spirit and your body, and it's like you're just ready.
Yeah,
you're just ready.
And one of the things that you hit on with this, with the diabetes, is that it is a forever now battle.
Absolutely.
And it is a forever now challenge. How have you and Jacob, that's your husband, how have you guys psychologically just accepted that?
Well, again, we started with technology that gives us data constantly.
Yeah.
So I don't know that we accepted anything. I think what we did was we utilized tools that would allow us to continue to live, all three of us. And so there's still tons of concerns. Clayton goes to college in 2 years. What are we doing? We're going out of town this weekend. Is everybody's phone on loud? Because it doesn't mean that just because he's not here, we're not using that technology to watch him constantly.
Absolutely.
It just has required us to step up our game on planning and preparing and trusting and having faith in God that he's going to take care of the baby, but also the 6'4" baby, but also that we have technology. We found things that would allow us to live our lives more normal than just accepting the diabetes and poking his finger 15 times a day.
Yeah, and so you really hit on that point of the managing it, right? And it's managing emotions as well as kind of technology. And what can I do? And I think that's the thing. You all got proactive in looking at that and trying to work together.
Yeah, absolutely.
To figure out, all right, how do we do it? And then, and I think it's a blessing that you all had each other to be able to lean on.
Yes.
But you also had that network of people around you. And what's crazy, because, my youngest son's got a rare disease.
Yes.
You go through this process of, not just the why thing, but just the heartbreak.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Because as it's your child.
That's right.
And we all have dreams for our children.
Absolutely.
And we want them to have better than what we had.
You just keep saying, why can't you give it to me?
Absolutely, because you would take it. And, what we don't realize is that you have it too. Yeah. Because your child has it.
Yes.
And so now it is a matter of leaning on faith to go, okay, this is the new normal.
Yep.
Right.
And there are moments, Chris, and I know that there are moments where, 10 months later, I still have a good cry about it. I still have a small, really, God, I do. And I'm sure I will forever. You absolutely have the ability to do that. That is within your right when you've suffered something to let it. I mean, yes, you want to get over it, heal from it, and come up with technology and do all the things, but you have to have grace with yourself.
Yes, you do.
I'm going to forever be sad that my son has a lifelong disease, period. And that's okay.
Yeah. And you know what? In the midst of that forever sadness, that comes, ebbs and flows, at times by the grace of God, that it doesn't stay as heavy as it always is.
Absolutely.
But that you also have happiness.
Yes.
You know why? Because he's here.
Yeah.
You all are managing it. You're working together with it. And it's just crazy how we go through those emotions. But I love the fact that you said, giving yourself permission to feel what you feel.
Yeah.
And I want to tell you that you have the right to feel how you feel in the midst of that storm or in the midst of that setback. And too often times I've talked to some friends that have gone through things and they're like, other people don't seem to understand, or other people don't know what I'm dealing with. And I go, you're right. They don't understand it to the level that you do because it's you. And you're walking through it. And what I would say is don't seek to get anybody to authenticate your pain. Don't seek anybody to sign off on your pain. What I want you to do is share it. Yeah. What I want you to do is talk about how you feel. This is a time that I think, Laurie, it's important when you're working through that pain and working through that setback that you do use personal pronouns. I, right? Now, life isn't about us all the time, but when you're talking about you, you need to own those feelings. You need to talk about what you feel, that heartbreak, that sadness that you can reach and grab because it's just right there, because it's real.
All the time.
And it is real, and you do need to allow yourself to feel that. And you don't need to apologize to anybody, and you don't need anybody to sign off on your pain. You get to feel it. But inside of that, what I want to encourage people to do do is to take that and do something with it. Don't just sit, because if you sit, that hole gets deeper and deeper. And so get the friends around you to throw you that lifeline. Get some friends around you to throw you that rope. Because when you do that, now you start to realize I am not alone. Mm-hmm. And for those, I'm a Christian. And so one of the things that I've realized that I can be in the darkest room and close my eyes as tight as possible, and I'm still never alone. Because I know the Lord and Savior is with me. And so that kind of mindset gives us the opportunity to be able to see differently and to respond differently. And I'll tell you what I want to do is, again, we'll come back to mine. And I'll share with you on another episode of kind of my storm and unpacking it, because I got to be honest, heart's heavy hearing that. And I also feel for the people out there that are watching that are maybe alone. When you're alone and in a storm, it's tiresome. Your soul gets weary. And I want to just tell you, pick up a phone, call somebody, go see somebody. Please don't stay there alone, because you don't have to be. And sometimes just talking or just being with a friend and just say, hey, I need you to listen. Yeah. Right? You don't need anybody to try to fix. You don't need anybody to try to solve. I just need somebody to hear me so I can talk about what's on my head and heart. And if you're like me, you're an audio kind of processor. I'm a verbal processor. So being able to talk about it in a non-judged way around people that actually care, what'll happen is you'll start to hear some things from yourself that will allow you to start to process and be able to move forward. And I just want to encourage you that where you are right now does not have to be where you end up. Where you are right now is an opportunity for you to be able to grow forward. And do me a favor, allow somebody else to be a blessing by you asking for help. And I'm going to tell you something, hear me with that. Allow somebody else to be a blessing in your life by asking for help. And then in that growth, what you will do is stand ready to then be a blessing to others by you having shared what you've been through in your life. And I just want to encourage you. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Absolutely.
That's a lot. But you know what? This after show is about getting real.
Yep.
And it's about sharing with you. We are not a plastic show. We are not a show that's just talking at you. We're working with you.
I want to say one thing before we go. All the storms that we've had this year, I realized probably maybe 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago, I hadn't shared any of those storms. And not that I hadn't talked through it with individuals and quietly, but I have found a lot of healing through a lot of those storms. And I wanted to first give glory to God, but secondly, to be the end result story for people that needed to know you can get through this. And so I did. I went and posted everywhere, and a very private person posted everywhere about all of these storms so that people would see I am in a good place. You know, and that I would encourage you to do that. If you've been through a storm, share that story. Somebody needs to hear that.
Yeah, I agree. And it goes back to what we asked for in the show, which in the call to action was to share that tip. You know, you don't have to share your storm, but you can share the tip. What got you through the storm? Who were the people that you had around you? And I'm going to tell you, the more we talk about this, I can't wait to read the comments. I can't wait to hear the tips, because what you're going to do is, by you being vulnerable, by you being open enough to share that tip, you're going to help save somebody else's life.
That's right.
You're going to help somebody else navigate through the storm, and that's what we're all about. So thank you all for taking the time to join us. As always, keep an eye out for our next episode. The Extraordinary Life Project, it's real, baby, and we'll be back.
See you guys later.